The storm winds howled outside my downtown condo as I adjusted my laptop screen for the video call. Rain lashed against the floor-to-ceiling windows of my penthouse, creating streaks that blurred the city lights below. My stepbrothers Marcus and Derek were already arguing in their separate video windows about who deserved what from our father's estate. "The beachfront property in Malibu is clearly mine," Marcus declared, adjusting his tie in what looked like his investment bank's conference room. At 35, he was the oldest and had always acted like David's biological son trumped my adopted status. Derek, 2 years younger, rolled his eyes from his cluttered apartment. "You never even use it." "My family spends every summer there." I stayed quiet, my fingers nervously tapping the sleek surface of my desk. At 28, I was the outsider who'd been taken in when my parents died in that car crash. Sarah Johnson, the adopted daughter who'd chosen tech over finance, who'd moved to Silicon Valley instead of staying to learn the family real estate business. If only they knew what I'd really been doing. "Sarah," Marcus said with that patronizing smirk I'd grown to hate. "You can have the cabin in Colorado. It's rustic, suits your whole startup vibe." The cabin was the least valuable property in David's portfolio, worth maybe 1/10 of the main holdings. I fought back a smile, remembering the conversation I'd had with Dad 3 years ago in his home office. Rebecca Miller's assistant appeared in a small video window. "Ms. Miller is ready to begin the call." I glanced at my phone. 8:55 p.m. Pacific Time. Right on schedule. The main video window expanded to show Rebecca Miller, our family's accountant and financial advisor for the past 15 years. Her blonde hair was pulled back professionally, her expression carefully neutral. "Good evening, Johnson family," she began. "As you know, we're here to discuss the status of David's assets following his sudden passing from cardiac arrest 2 weeks ago. Dad's death had been swift and unexpected. The last time I'd video called him, just 3 days before, he'd given me that knowing look through the camera. Our plan was still secure. Now," Rebecca continued, "I understand you've all received the preliminary asset summary I sent last week." Marcus leaned forward eagerly. "Yes, and I have concerns about the distribution timeline." "Actually," Rebecca interrupted, "those documents were just an overview. David left very specific instructions about how tonight's meeting should unfold." Derek's connection flickered as the storm intensified. "What do you mean?" "The will is clear. The estate gets divided among his children." "That's partially accurate," Rebecca shuffled through her papers. "But first, we need to discuss the current status of Johnson Development Group. Here we go." I straightened in my chair, watching my stepbrothers' faces on screen. "What about the company?" Marcus demanded. As the eldest son, I obviously. "Johnson Development Group's assets," Rebecca cut in, "have been frozen pending investigation." The silence was broken only by the sound of thunder outside. Through my window, I could see lightning illuminating the storm clouds, counting the seconds until their world collapsed. "Frozen?" Derek's voice cracked through the video lag. "That's impossible." "Why frozen?" "Due to irregularities discovered during the audit," Rebecca replied, then paused deliberately. "Specifically, unauthorized transactions traced to family members." Marcus's laugh came through the speakers with a brittle edge. "This is ridiculous." "What irregularities?" "Dad's books were always clean. He'd never let outsiders interfere." "You're right," I said quietly, speaking for the first time. "He wouldn't let outsiders interfere." Both stepbrothers stared at their cameras. I reached for my tablet and pulled up a secure folder, sharing my screen with the video call. "Apex Strategic Consulting was founded 4 years ago," I explained, my voice calm. "It's a private consulting firm specializing in crisis management and asset protection, and I'm the CEO." The webcams would have captured their expressions perfectly. Marcus's face going pale, Derek's mouth falling open in his messy apartment. "You?" Derek whispered through the connection lag. "But you were in Silicon Valley, building apps, you said." "I was," I confirmed. Apex Strategic was my startup. Dad was my first client. Marcus frantically started typing, probably trying to Google my company. His fingers shook as he searched for information. Financial reports, client testimonials, business registration documents, all legitimate and verified. "This is insane," he stammered. "Dad would never, you couldn't possibly." "Your stepsister," Rebecca interjected, "spent 2 years earning David's trust. She presented a comprehensive plan to protect Johnson Development Group from the financial risks your activities were creating. While you two were pursuing your own ventures, Sarah was quietly safeguarding the family assets." I remembered those late-night video calls with Dad, analyzing financial statements, discussing damage control, proving I had the skills to protect what he'd built. He'd recognized what my stepbrothers never could, that my time in tech wasn't about abandoning the family, but about gaining the expertise to save it. The company's assets, Rebecca continued, including all property holdings, investment portfolios, and development projects, were legally transferred to a protective trust managed by Apex Strategic in 2022. David remained as the public face until his death, but crisis management has been Sarah's responsibility for the past 3 years. Derek slumped back in his chair, his video feed shaking. "But the inheritance, our shares." I pulled up another document on my screen. The Malibu house, the Colorado cabin, the commercial properties downtown, they're all owned by Johnson Development Group, which means they belong to you, Marcus finished, his voice hollow. "To the protective trust," I corrected. "Dad and I restructured everything necessary for asset protection, you understand." The storm was still raging outside my condo, lightning illuminating the dark sky. In their separate locations, they were probably realizing their comfortable lives were about to change dramatically. But in this video call, their world was crumbling. "Why?" Derek asked. "Why the secrecy? Why not tell us?" I met his gaze through the camera. "Would you have listened? Taken financial advice from your adopted sister? Accepted oversight from the one you always treated like an outsider?" Marcus shot up from his chair, the sound echoing through his video feed. "This isn't over. We'll challenge this in court." "Actually," Rebecca interrupted again, "we need to discuss the investigation findings now, because David left very specific instructions regarding your futures with the company." I leaned back in my chair, watching my stepbrothers' faces through their camera feeds. They had no idea this was just the beginning. Dad's real shock was still coming, and I had the best seat in the house to watch it unfold. The video call was being automatically recorded, capturing every moment of this family crisis. Dad had insisted on documentation, he'd said with that knowing smile. I touched the smooth surface of my desk, feeling his presence with me. "Ready when you are, Rebecca," I said steadily. "Let's show them phase 2. Rebecca adjusted her glasses and looked directly at my stepbrothers through the video screen. "Phase 2 of David's plan involves a very specific arrangement for your potential future with Johnson Development Group." Marcus was still standing in his office, his expensive suit now wrinkled from stress. "We don't need arrangements. We're his sons." "Actually," I interjected, pulling up another document on my tablet, "you both waived those privileges 3 years ago." "What?" Derek leaned closer to his camera. "We never waived anything." I shared my screen again. "Remember those monthly financial updates Dad had you e-sign? The ones you approved without reading?" Section 12.3 of each document contained gradual liability transfers for company debts to personal guarantees. The blood drained from their faces as understanding hit. Dad had always insisted they sign the monthly reports, a routine they'd treated as meaningless paperwork to keep the old man happy. That's entrapment," Marcus stammered. Rebecca cleared her throat. "Everything was clearly disclosed in the documents. Your digital signatures were legally binding. Your choice not to read the terms doesn't invalidate the agreements." I remembered Dad's words when we planned this strategy. "Your stepbrothers think business is about impressive titles and expensive lunches. Let's see if they've learned to read the details." However, Rebecca continued, David didn't want to destroy your futures completely. He believed in redemption, with accountability. She held up a thick document. This outlines Phase 2 of the Asset Protection Plan. Each of you has the opportunity to resolve your debts and earn back your standing in the family, with strict conditions. Derek's connection flickered as he moved closer to his camera. What kind of conditions? I stood up and walked to my window, looking out at the stormlit city below. The building's maintenance crew was working despite the weather, a job that required dedication, reliability, and attention to safety, qualities my stepbrothers had never developed. Each of you will start at entry-level positions, I explained. Derek, given your real estate background, you'll begin in our property management division. Marcus, with your finance experience, you'll start in our debt recovery department. Entry level? Marcus looked like he might collapse. I'm a senior manager at Goldman Sachs. We're a senior manager, Rebecca corrected. David arranged for your employment to be terminated today, along with Derek's development contracts. The storm outside intensified, thunder rumbling through my condo speakers. Right on cue, both their phones lit up with notifications. Termination emails, effective immediately, coordinated months ago by Dad's legal team. This is crazy, Derek whispered. You can't just. I can, I said quietly. And I have. But unlike you two, I'm offering a real chance. Prove yourselves over the next year, learn accountability from the ground up, and you can earn back your standing in the family. And if we refuse? Marcus demanded. I allowed myself a small smile. Then you keep your trust funds, the ones that don't vest until you're 50. Until then, you'll receive basic allowances, enough to rent a studio apartment but not much more. The video feed caught Marcus's face turning red with rage. He'd just bought that Tesla, I remembered. Probably financed, counting on the family money to make payments. There's more, Rebecca added. David left personal messages for each of you. Sarah, would you share them? I opened a secure folder on my tablet and forwarded 2 video files. My stepbrothers opened them with shaking hands. As they watched, I observed their expressions change. Dad had always known exactly what to say to reach each of us. I'd watched my message the day after he died, words of love, confidence, and gentle guidance for what lay ahead. Derek finished first, slumping back in his chair. Marcus paused his video, then restarted it, as if unsure whether to accept or reject Dad's final words. Dad knew, Derek said quietly. About the gambling debts, I nodded. And about the investment fraud at your bank, Marcus. We have all the evidence. Marcus's head jerked up. You're threatening us. No, I replied. I'm offering you a way out. Accept the positions, work honestly, learn real responsibility, and those mistakes stay private. Refuse, and, well, I shrugged. Apex Strategic has professional obligations regarding financial crimes. The only sound was the rain against my windows and the faint hum of their internet connections. I could almost hear Dad's voice. Real power isn't about holding the biggest hammer, Sarah. It's about knowing when and how to help people save themselves. How long? Derek asked. How long have you been planning this? I settled back in my chair, feeling Dad's wisdom guiding me. Remember when I left for California 6 years ago? You both mocked me, said I was abandoning the family. But I was preparing. Stanford MBA, internships at tech giants, building networks, creating Apex Strategic from nothing. While Marcus trailed off. While you were riding on the family reputation, I finished. Taking shortcuts, bending rules whenever it was convenient. Rebecca cleared her throat. The rehabilitation contracts are ready for your review. You have 24 hours to decide. After that, the Financial Crimes Unit will receive some very detailed reports. And if we complete the program? Derek asked. After 1 year? I opened another file on my tablet. Then you each receive 15% equity in a new subsidiary company. I maintain majority control, but you'll have genuine authority, genuine accountability. Earned through effort, not inherited through blood. Why? Marcus's voice was barely audible through the video feed. Why put us through all this? Because Dad believed in family, I answered. Not just shared genetics or legal documents, but shared values, integrity, real competence. He wanted his children, all his children, to be worthy of the Johnson name, not just entitled to it. I stood up, closing my laptop. You have 24 hours. The contracts are with Rebecca. I suggest you actually read them this time. As I moved toward my kitchen, Derek called out through the video, "Where are you going?" "To make dinner." Unlike some people, I actually take care of myself. I paused before ending the call. "Oh, and Marcus? Contact that Tesla dealer. You're going to need that trade-in money for a security deposit." The video call captured their shell-shocked expressions as I disconnected. Outside, the storm was finally clearing, city lights reflecting off the wet streets. I pulled out my phone and called my assistant. "Miss Johnson," she answered. "How did the family meeting go?" "Exactly as Dad anticipated," I replied. "Have the onboarding team ready tomorrow morning. I think we'll have 2 new program participants to process." "And if they decline?" I smiled, thinking of the additional evidence files stored in my secure cloud. "They won't. Phase 3 will ensure that." The real challenge was just starting, and I held every advantage. Dad had prepared me well. Sometimes the most effective strategy is the one your opponents never see coming until they're already caught. The next morning, Apex Strategic's sleek downtown offices hummed with anticipation. Word had traveled fast. The Johnson Stepbrothers were beginning their first day in the financial rehabilitation program. I watched from my corner office as Marcus's Uber pulled up to the building entrance, followed by Derek arriving on foot. They'd both shown up. Phase 3 could officially begin. "They're here," my assistant announced through the intercom. "Human Resources has their orientation materials ready." "Send them up to me first," I replied. Minutes later, my stepbrothers entered, both looking uncomfortable in off-the-rack business attire instead of their usual designer clothes. Marcus had exhaustion written across his face, and Derek's normally cocky demeanor was completely gone. "Take a seat," I gestured to the chairs facing my desk. The floor-to-ceiling windows behind me showcased the financial district skyline, a reminder of the success they'd lost and might potentially reclaim. "Before you begin the program," I started, "there's something else you need to see." I pressed a button on my desk, and a hidden panel in the wall slid open, revealing a digital safe. Dad's private files. Derek recognized the setup. But that was in his home office. "This is a secure backup," I explained, entering the access code. "The original system is still at his house, but the important files were transferred here last week." Inside was a single encrypted drive and a sealed envelope. I connected the drive to my computer, and Dad's face appeared on the large monitor mounted on the wall. "My children," Dad's recorded image spoke, looking exactly as he had 3 days before his heart attack. "If you're watching this, then everything has gone according to plan." Marcus shifted uncomfortably in his chair. Derek leaned closer to the screen. "Sarah," Dad continued, "has exceeded every expectation I had. But this was never just about finding someone to protect the business. It was about saving our family." The camera showed financial documents spread across his desk. "Marcus, Derek, I know about all of it. The investment fraud, the gambling debts, the attempts to manipulate Sarah when she tried to help you with financial planning." My stepbrothers went pale. There was clearly more they hadn't confessed, even to themselves. "But I also remember you as boys. Derek, who cried when we had to put down our old dog and wanted to build a memorial garden. Marcus, who spent his birthday money on toys for the children's hospital and made me promise not to tell anyone. You weren't always consumed by desperation and poor choices." Dad's gaze seemed to look directly at them through the screen. "That's why I supported Sarah's plan. Not just to protect our assets, but to save you both from destroying yourselves." "Your plan?" Derek turned to me. I nodded. Phase 3 was my proposal. Dad refined it, but the framework was mine. On screen, Dad held up a legal document. This is the real family agreement. Sarah doesn't just manage the crisis response. She has full authority over your rehabilitation. But not as punishment, as opportunity. He smiled with gentle sadness. Your sister grasped something you both lost sight of. Real wealth isn't in investment portfolios or property values. It's in the trust we build, the integrity we maintain, and the love we share. So here's the final element, Dad continued. Sarah has complete discretion over your program terms. She can adjust them, accelerate them, or end them. But there's one requirement even she must honor. I opened the envelope and laid out the contents. Family brunch, I said softly. Every Saturday. Required attendance. No business discussions permitted. Because, Dad's recording continued, you need to rediscover how to be family again. Sarah will protect our legacy, but she needs her brothers, not as subordinates, but as family. The screen faded to black. In the quiet that followed, I could hear the soft hum of the building's ventilation system and the distant sounds of the city awakening below. There's more, I said, revealing additional documents. If you successfully complete 1 year, not 2, of honest participation in the program, you'll each receive 12% equity in the new subsidiary. Another 8% will be set aside for your future families. Your children? Derek looked puzzled. Your future children, I clarified. Dad believed in generational planning. Long-term thinking. Marcus stood up and walked to the window, his reflection pale against the bright morning cityscape. All this, it was never about punishing us, was it? No, I replied. It was about saving you, saving us as a family. Derek joined his brother at the window. We were terrible to you, Sarah. All those years, you were. I know. But you're still my brothers, and Dad believed you could grow. And you? Marcus turned. Do you believe we can change? I stood up, joining them at the window. Below, the city was in full motion. People hurrying to work, building their lives, chasing their goals. I believe, I said thoughtfully, that this company needs more than just my perspective. It needs your investment knowledge, Marcus is used ethically this time, and your development experience, Derek, focused on sustainable growth, not quick profits. But first, I continued, we need to rebuild trust, starting with Saturday brunch. Where? Derek asked. My condo, I smiled. I make excellent pancakes and bacon, and I have photos from my Stanford graduation that you both missed, plus screenshots of all your embarrassing social media posts that Dad secretly saved. Marcus actually chuckled. A genuine laugh, not his usual forced networking smile. You're going to torture us with those forever, aren't you? Absolutely. I'm a Johnson, after all. The following months were challenging. Marcus struggled with following protocols set by younger analysts. Derek had to relearn basic project management skills he'd ignored in his rush for bigger deals. But gradually, things shifted. Saturday brunches became real family time. Over shared meals and honest conversations, we rediscovered what it meant to be siblings, not just financial competitors. 6 months later, I called them both to my office again. They entered hesitantly, but with more self-assurance than that first devastating day. The rehabilitation team is impressed with your progress, I began. Especially the compliance monitors. Is this about the equity? Derek asked. It hasn't been a full year yet. No, I smiled. This is about Phase 4. There's a Phase 4? Marcus groaned. Dad's still pulling strings from beyond? I laughed. Actually, Phase 4 is my initiative. How would you both feel about partnering with me on a new project? Something independent from Apex Strategic, but synergistic. A chance to create something together, as partners. Their expressions showed shock, then curiosity. We spent the next 3 hours exploring ideas, debating business models and market opportunities with genuine enthusiasm. It felt natural. 1 year to the day after that first crisis video call, we gathered in Dad's home office. The recording equipment was still there, quiet witnesses to our family's evolution. "I want to show you something," I said, pulling up the footage from that explosive first meeting. We watched our former selves, hardly recognizing the desperate, angry men and the guarded, strategic woman we'd been. "We were such fools," Derek reflected. "Were?" Marcus joked, earning a light shove from his brother. "I studied them, really studied them." Marcus had lost that calculating coldness in his expression. Derek's face showed the warmth I remembered from when we were kids. And I had discovered something precious too, brothers I could depend on, not just in business, but in life. "Dad would be proud," I said quietly. "Of all of us." The recording system was still capturing this moment. But we no longer needed documentation to prove who we were or what we meant to each other. We were Johnsons, not just by adoption or legal papers, but in our hearts. And that, as Dad had always understood, was worth more than any fortune. The real journey was just starting, and I held all the right cards. Dad had prepared me perfectly. Sometimes the most powerful move is the one your family never sees coming until they're already safe. We were Johnsons, not just by name or legal documents, but in spirit. And that, as Dad had known from the beginning, was worth more than any inheritance.